Hi everyone, my name is Tej Yale. I'm the founder and CEO of Think Impact. We are a digital marketing company based out of Rochester Hills, Michigan. Today I'm very fortunate to have DeAndre James and Rubelyn Chu, the founder and co-founder of Access 2, for this interview. Thank you guys for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, thank
Thank you.
you. So, a little bit of backgrounds. DeAndre James is the founder of Access 2, a sourcing and staffing marketplace that operates in tandem with community organizations. We help ensure that space is occupied by providing opportunity through events and storytelling through our unique platform, one of them being sports. Attending Eastern Washington University with a passion for event planning, Dre landed a job as a supervisor for campus media productions. His passion for bringing people together strategically led to the campus hosting one of its first major hip hop acts, David Banner, for a live show. As a veteran, he focuses on creating opportunity and disrupting bias in the professional world by planning and creating unique platforms that help ensure equity for veterans and minorities in multiple spaces. During his spare time, he likes to spend time with his family and go on road trips. Rubelyn Chu is the co-founder of Access 2, a sourcing and staffing marketplace that operates in tandem with community organizations. We help ensure that space is occupied by providing opportunity through events and storytelling through our unique platform, one of them being sports. Part of the Alumni Advisory Board and advising the entrepreneurship program at Northwest University. Rubelyn is a mentor to local high school, college students, and in the local startup community. When she isn't working, she can be found in the gym, going on the road, trips, traveling, or being with family and friends. So thank you guys again for your time. I greatly appreciate it. The first question that I have for both of you is how did you both come together to form this partnership, and how did the Access to startup journey, if you will, come to be?
Dre, do you want to go first, and I'll go after you?
Well, okay, I'll give you a little bit of the background or I'd say the why of Access. Briefly, I joined the military at 19 years old, um, thinking that was the best opportunity for myself to get out of the situation that I was in. I tested for the ASVAB. I know for sure I scored pretty highly on it, but I was still kind of ushered into being a cook in the military. Went through basic training, um, got out of basic training, and boom, I had to go to Iraq. We did about 8 months of training, and I went to Iraq, got sick in Iraq, ended up losing both my kidneys, came back with advanced kidney disease, sat on dialysis for about 5.5 years after that, and then got a transplant in 2014. Now, to the average person, that's a sad sob story, but to a veteran, it's actually pretty common. Um, when I got out the military, even after all the things that I had gone through in my life, one of the scariest things for me to do was sit down in front of a resume and fill it out, because everything I had gone through didn't translate to the civilian life. So the purpose of Access, stemmed from me just sitting there being terrified, even after being in Iraq, going through basic training, losing friends in Iraq as well. And one of the most terrifying things was that transition when society said, hey, guess what? We gave you a transplant. Now you're healed. Go back to work. Access is about disrupting that bias for that veteran, not just myself, for that minority, not just myself, for that underserved, underprivileged person to meet employers where they're at, or employers meet them where they're at, and give them a fair shot. Sometimes numbers and data don't always tell the full story when we're talking about diversity and inclusion. And I think a lot of companies hide behind that in order to, kind of shield some of the systematic issues that they got going on from within. So we did a tournament back in 2019, Access 3-on-3 tournament, where we invited 20 teams to come out. Um, when they came out, before they came out, we encouraged them to fill out a resume, make sure their LinkedIn was updated, and when they showed up, instead of inviting typical community to the tournament, we invited companies. Companies like Microsoft, DocuSign, CITC, Pace, Teamsters, IBEW, pipe fitters. Anu was there, the apprenticeship program, and they were there to place value into a product. And when we did that, we stumbled upon something new, which was, access.
Yeah. Going from that, Tej, how it built from that, he and I met last year, and coming from in academia, but also the tech industry, I did see the gap of the minorities that weren't there, and it was very evident that the minorities like myself and the blacks and everything, that in itself was already an issue, and there was a gap in that. And when I did meet with Dre and he was telling me what he was doing, I myself, I like sports. I'm a sports fan. I went to Gonzaga, so basketball is a thing for me, and not just basketball of what we were doing for tournaments, but I think it was a vehicle to bring everyone together, not even dividing of what is happening, in our climate right now. But it is one event that everyone does come together. And for me, I did see a gap. And coming from an operational background, there was a way how I saw it, how we can execute this fairly. I think now what we are doing is very human based and in person of what is happening, but we've definitely have pivoted. And I think later down this interview, we are going to be talking about that, of how we have been able to pivot and where we are now. But seeing the gap where he was taking his angle on it, and how how much knowledge I do have in the workforce as well as in education and everything like that, I thought of it was not a no-brainer to be able to bridge that gap and be able to work together. Because I myself is a minority, and you don't see much women in the force of being in the executive seat or in a powerful leadership position. At that, a woman of color, and it's difficult, right? But even at that, yes, we have that position and all that power, but there's also the biases that is happening as we are in that position.
It's a great story of how Access was formed, and a lot of lessons to be learned from that. It's great. The second question that I had was, I know I kind of gave a brief intro about you both, but if you can kind of just expand on that in terms of the directions that you are taking Access in, not requiring you to tell all of your projects, but kind of how that led with your respective backgrounds, how that kind of even further delivered on your mission of what you guys thought when you initially set out.
Yeah. I can go in the realm of the education, mentorship, and consulting piece of it. For me, it's a no-brainer to have a marketplace. Access is in partnership with the YPOS, Young Professionals of Seattle, and is now also with the Young Professionals of San Francisco. But also on the other arm of that, Access has the ProDev Academy, which is the group of, we have coaches, we have life coaches, we have career coaches, we have consulting, we have the diversity and inclusion consulting space of that. And with that, and my expertise of, in the experience of in the tech industry and in the consulting piece of my friends coming to me and talking to me about certain situations and in their problems and what career paths they are taking, I'm like, okay, why not have this? But also, it's a passion of mine, being able to help the upcoming generations after myself to guide them and be able to set them up for success, even though it's not in the realm of college, because not everyone is made for college. And that's the other thing I do like about Access, of why we are so agile in our approach of business, like how can we do that, is being able to approach in a way where we can consult with people and not just a rigid way of that. And for me, I have so many hands in so many pots, but I do have an MBA. I have my master's, and probably I think later on down the road, I think coming up in spring, I might take a position as an adjunct professor at the university I have graduated with my master's in. And I've always liked teaching. It was never a burden to me when people do come to me asking for knowledge, or how do you teach this? How are you doing this? How are you approaching this? And to me, that is something I like to do, and it gives me fulfillment. And I do come also with the customer service route. I did come from the automobile industry. I worked for BMW Seattle Group, and I also worked for the Honda and Toyota Group. And after that was the tech and the city of Seattle, and a different realm of overall well-rounded background of me. It was never one specific group. And outside of work, it's always been, hanging with my friends and seeing where they are up to and where they want to go, and building them up. And I think I see that in myself while I'm building Access, is that people, in the realm of trying to get to their next level in life, of either it's in the workforce or they want to grow spiritually or in themselves, personal development. I'm no, I don't have the certification, but I do give the knowledge from my experience of what I've gone through in life and in the education and in the professional realm of things. So that's a little bit about me, more an expansion of what you gave.
Sure. Dre, did you have anything that you wanted to add, or?
No,
Yeah.
I think that's it.
You say what?
I think
I
that's
said,
it.
did you want to add anything as well? But,
Like Rubelyn said, that's it.
okay. And so this is the last question before I'll open it up for Q&A. The third question was, how has Access 2 been? Obviously, these times are challenging. So how has the company kind of sustained itself through these challenging times, and how have you and your team had to adapt to what's becoming the new norm in terms of working virtually and taking those things more virtually, I guess?
Well, oh, I'd say we were originally based off doing in-person events. That was our bread and butter. But being able to shift virtually to doing the technical talks has been something that seems to be working well for us. We on Tuesdays, we call it Technical Tuesdays. We invite certain people of influence. For example, we've had Aries Spears on the show. We've had Shamika Holzclaw on the show. We've had Marcus Trufant, Terry Holloman on the show as well. All either whether in entertainment or the sports industries, we bring them on the show, and we strip them down from whatever makes them great as far as whether it's comedy or sports, and then really talk about the business side of things, understanding them, from the entrepreneurship side, and the other side of what makes them great has really worked for us.
Yeah. So as Dre, going off of that, Tej, as Dre has mentioned, we are very heavily focused on in-person events. However, that has pivoted on more to going online. And as I mentioned, we are part of a huge network that has over 20,000 people in itself. So, we've kind of pivoted on that. And that's what I was kind of a little bit on touching on, is that we are in the process of making a series, Hot Seat. Hot Seat is what I'll say for that. And it's coming hopefully within the next few weeks, actually. We're lining up our guests here and being able to pivot that way and gravitate eyes and ears as much as we can online. rather than just having it in discussion, but more so having it so much interactive with whoever we bring onto the hot seat. So.
Sounds
And as
great.
we do that, what I was going to say, as we do that, we focus on being a connection to minority communities and underserved, communities when we do these events, because these are the types of, organized events that, those communities are separated from. So Access's, main purpose is to become a bridge, to become, sort of a pipeline, so to speak, for minorities to engage in these environments and have the same opportunity as their counterparts.
It's great. Can't wait to learn more about that when it does come out. So for those who have joined, if you guys have any questions, wanted to open it up for Q&A.
A quick question. I'm also a part of the minority group. However, the current subject matter of inclusive promoting and all of that, I totally believe in that. Now, if you look at the tech industry today, I would say most tech industry CEOs and CIOs are all run by minorities, including financial institutions.
Mm.
So given the fact the topic is of inclusivity and things like that, they are, but it's never enough. I totally agree with that. If you happen to be in a position where you could make a difference like tomorrow, what are the steps you would be taking? What is it that you're looking for in terms of how you can elevate and promote and make this thing happen?
Mm-hmm.
Because there has to be some sort of vision in terms of what we're trying to do, right? Because I'm also a minority. I'm looking for the channel, trying to see what are the ideas people have in terms of executing. Like, let's say tomorrow you are Mr. Berkshire Hathaway, really the big man. So if you are sitting in that position, how and what are the avenues and what are the channels you want to address and say, here it is, here's the set of plans that should be implemented so we can see this end result, what we're trying to achieve. What would you be doing?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rubelyn.
Okay, I was gonna say that if I had that power tomorrow, what I would do is go ahead and hire a team, people that are smarter than I am and have that intake of like, hey, okay, so this is the plan of how do we hire the people of color. I would take those people that have more smarts and strengths in certain areas in mind. I'm going to take, for example, in the accounting area, because not many people are in the accounting area that I've seen people of color. Is that I'm like, okay, if I were to go ahead.
General Motors CIO is Asian
Woman.
Indian lady.
Yes, that one. No, I'm saying that one. Yes, the general monitor. I'm saying in the financial institution, like for the like banking and stuff, is not many people on that side. So I would have a team that would hire and strategically go boots on the ground for me, because yes, you can do all the hiring processes and here and that, and you can have like all the online media presence, but if you want to get these people of color and have them tap into a whole group of pool that isn't being tapped into, I would say going boots on the ground. It starting from ground up is that you have to be with the people, because if you're not with the people, how would you know that these opportunities, how would they know if these opportunities exist if they aren't exposed to these resources or information, if it's not their everyday thing? Because some people are not even with internet right now, or even in like laptops or even phones in these areas. So what I would do is go have a team go in the boots of the ground where people are looking for opportunities and meet them where they are, and be able to be meeting them in the middle at least, and show them what is what their opportunities are. And that's what I would do. Dre, what is yours?
In response to that, what I'll do is I won't go into, I'll talk about our experience and what
Okay.
we have seen personally with multiple companies just based here in Seattle. When we point out that, yes, companies have diversity within the walls, yes, they do, in leadership. There is diversity in leadership. There's also diversity at the bottom. It's when you get to the mid-management is where that diversity starts to thin out. If the middle class struggles as an economy, the economy struggles as a whole. If middle management struggles with diversity, the company struggles as a whole. So a lot of times company culture has a lot to play, in the whole, diversity and inclusion, I'd say chess game, because what I'm experiencing is, as far as, companies wanting to change that inclusion, they're not using people that represent the resources that they seek. I don't appreciate a company hiring somebody that says they want to change inclusion or the diversity and inclusion of that company culture, but they import them in from another city or another country, and they don't know anything about the current culture and the current climate that they're in. That's not fair to the minorities in that immediate climate, and we see it here every day in Seattle. There is a it's almost a crime economic gap between the south end of Seattle and the north end of Seattle. They don't put the resources in. These companies don't put resources into the surrounding communities in order to empower them, so that they create a company culture that allows a minority to come in at bottom level, move up through middle management, and then enter, top management. That pipeline isn't there. That's what I would change first, is the company culture of not creating the pipeline and the inclusive culture to where a person that looks like me can walk into a tech company and say, this is where I want to stay. This is where I want to be. This is where I want to grow my craft. And this is eventually where I want to lead. They get into these cultures and then they look around and then they find out it's something completely different. So yes, there is companies and tech companies that have management at the top and management at the bottom, but the middle management is where we really, really need to, address.
No, that's a good point. That inclusive is from your local surrounding and within yourself. That's a good point. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Any
question.
other questions?
That was a good question. Yeah.
So I guess the next question that I had for you both was, I'm sure along the way in building Access 2, there probably were some hardships along the way. And how did you overcome those, and what were some lessons that you learned in that journey?
Know your value.
Hmm.
Know it early. You start out being an entrepreneur sometimes, and I did this myself, allowing others to value your ideas and your intellectual properties without knowing that yourself. I think that was one of the most important things that I learned on my, just starting out. We invented a fall prevention system called a G clamp back in 2011, and I will admit I allowed other people to value us, and we ended up not doing as well as we could have on that business venture. So one of the main things I learned from that is knowing your value and understanding that your time is your most important commodity. You can't place a number on that, and if it's worth your time, then just at least know your value before you give it.
Yeah. I'd say the same thing. Being able to push through, even though it's hard. because it is going to be hard. There's going to be sleepless nights and working on weekends sometimes, and figuring out a balance. If your body is telling you to rest, you should rest, and really listen to yourself internally. And at the end of the day, it's you. It's you and your partners that are pushing this through, and not everybody else that's coming into the ring with you, going day in and day out, and being able to just be consistent and be driven all the time.
Sounds good. So I think that would be a good segue to the next question, which is what entrepreneurial or business tips, for that matter, would you have for both current and aspiring entrepreneurs who want to have their own business or who already have their own business?
Boundaries. Have boundaries. Definitely boundaries. It's easy to be driven and all that stuff and ambitious and heads down all the time, but when you don't know it, time flies by and life passes you by. So I think establishing boundaries with whoever you're going into ventures with, and be able to time block. Time block is the most important thing that I have realized, because yes, there's going to be work there all the time and you have to get it done and all this stuff, cool, but you have to have your boundaries and be able to fill your cup up before filling other people's cup and helping other people. Oh, and learn how, if this is what you're wanting to do, you have to be able to push through and have, be able to have faith in what you are doing, even though you don't see the results yet.
Awesome.
Sounds good. Dre?
I would say know your why. Know why you're doing something. Most people don't get rich because they invent something new. They get rich because they solve the problem. Yeah, that would be my advice to a young and inspiring entrepreneur.
Sounds good. So are there any influencers that you guys follow that inspire or motivate you that you also try to integrate with your company's mission, whether that be through storytelling or subsequent areas within your business?
Yeah. I follow Jay Shetty. He's cool. Him and Gary V is the other two. Those are the two, but definitely Jay, because he has a sense of approaching entrepreneurship in a purpose, and that is tied with my faith. I think I know for sure, if I know my purpose and my mission of why I'm doing something and not just for the money, it's bigger than myself, and that for me is what pushes me more than ever, more than money, because money comes and goes for me, that cliche thing, but it's definitely, a lot of people don't find their purpose or their mission throughout life, and it takes a lifetime. And if you have found it, then I say tap into it and continue to move forward with it. And if you need to work, then sure, go ahead and work and do your side hustle if you want to, and continue to do so.
I would say Killer Mike. That's my guy. I really appreciate the fact that every time he opens his mouth, I feel like I learned something. I feel like I, can apply what he says within a 2-minute snippet to what I do every day. So yeah, that's how I try to approach access, is with that mentality of, we can make money. Money is always great, but what is the impact? What is the problem we're trying to solve? And always have that mindset and that goal placed first. The money will come.
Yeah. Because if there's a problem, there's always going to be a solution. There is a solution. Sure. If there's a solution, you go ahead and bridge that gap, I think, is what people miss when they're starting businesses.
Sounds great. So obviously, as we had kind of touched on earlier, COVID-19 has kind of dramatically changed the business landscape. And for those of those of us, I guess, as small business owners who may be going through hard times, is there some encouragement that you guys can provide that maybe, if they're feeling down and out, experiencing difficulty, maybe some words of encouragement that you guys can provide?
Mm. I'd
Keep
say,
going.
yeah, exactly.
Keep going, and be adaptable. I think that's the number one thing I've taken with me since COVID has began, is being adaptable and humbling myself to enough to listen to young people in this time.
Mhm.
Because as a person, as an older person, I wasn't hip to technology. I wasn't hip to virtual meetings. Everything was in person. That's because that's the era I come from. Go wake up, go to the office, work your 8 hours a day, and go home, and be a family man. But now all of that's kind of blended together. Your meeting is followed by your kid who needs to be fed at 9:30, and now you have another meeting, with a different person at 12, and now you got to put them to sleep at 1. So just being adaptable and understanding that this is a time where, you know, I think older and younger people need to have more conversation and be in these virtual rooms to try to meet in the middle and have some sort of game plan moving forward, through this virtual shift.
Yeah. I'd say also write write down what you are thinking, feeling, and your goals are, and break them down little by little, and just keep going. Keep going is what it is, I think, and continue to be, yeah, as Dre said, be humble and continue to learn and have an open mind and open heart of what's happening. This world has slowed down a ton, so I think it has given the opportunity for some people to actually go through the motions. And if they are, then I think that it's good to just sit in with those motions and feeling that's happening, and then be able to of your day. Yeah, as Dre has mentioned, being adaptable is huge right now because nothing is the same, really. And yeah, stay encouraged.
And don't be afraid to take your time too. That's one thing I've noticed in this virtual shift is we're being dragged virtually and in
Mm.
person. As soon as we get off a virtual call, we still have to deal with everyday life and in our homes. One thing I found really powerful to me is the power of being alone, taking some solitude time, taking time to yourself to heal, to regenerate, to collect your thoughts. To really just get it together. Especially in times like this. This is something new for everybody. So that's just my advice for everybody.
Mhm.
Sounds great. So the last question that I had was, where do you see the staffing and recruiting industry going, and what is Access to doing to stay ahead of the curve within that regard?
Mm. I think in what the industry in itself is going towards, it's going to be all virtual. I think, with all the social media platforms, it's everything is going to be all online for a little long while than anticipated. I know that Facebook just announced with their portal device, Zoom is going to be in that device. So that in itself is powerful, because now you can take that thing anywhere and everywhere you go and have that on there. I think, the old style of where staffing and recruiting is, where you are going to be meeting the people online and in person, but it will take more effort, I think, building relationships, because that is the key to this staffing and industry. I think if anything, it's relationships also in businesses. The relationships you build online can translate also in person. I think that's a huge thing, because there there's no way, the vaccine of this COVID isn't there yet. so everyone's still inside and being able to be mobile and staying in home. Um, and I'm just going to chip at this a little bit. What we are doing with the Access to stay ahead of the curve, as I mentioned earlier, of the hot seat, is that, you know, we will be having people that have decision powers or business owners to go on our platform and to be able to describe what's going on with their industry, but also, you know, have a pipeline building as we are having this show. Um, I think, as I mentioned earlier, the 20 something thousand people we have in our network, there's going to be more people tuning in since everyone is now online. That it's going to be a way of recruiting and staffing, sourcing online through different channels, I would say, is what I would say here. And how, like, people are getting there, it's a way of where we are with access to, of being in these communities sometimes, and having friends of friends of that knows people. And I think it goes into the whole spider web of staying ahead of the curve. Is when people are interviewing and all this stuff is going to be all online. And yeah, I think that is also the event side of it. So instead of in person, I know we have set for a date for a huge career fair, November 12th. There will be details on that of access to and pro dev of how we are going to be advertising that and how it's going to work. So that's my take on that. So
It's
Yeah,
great.
just to add on to that, I mean, without giving, because we always have to be very vague when we're giving out,
yeah,
information on access, and because we have a different process. So, the thing with our staffing company is we got away from staffing people and started staffing cultures. That's how we stay innovative and stay ahead of the curve with access. Um, you know, for example, with our in-person events, we're not just about basketball. We have the ability to do an advanced career fair with soccer, with cricket. We can play volleyball. We can play
football.
football, flag football. Anything as far as organized sporting events, we can turn into an advanced career fair. Very simple concept. I don't know why anybody hasn't thought of it already, but we took that concept and translated it virtually. Instead of picking up the phone cold calling every single day, all day, like the dinosaur way of staffing, we started staffing cultures. We bring hiring managers in the same way we do access tournaments, and we bring influencers in. Like I mentioned before, Marcus Trufant, we brought in, and we received a bunch of engagement. And during that engagement, our job as Access is to engage the people and give them opportunity, meet them where they are. Hey, guess what? We're talking about digital marketing with Marcus right now. Guess what? We have opportunities here available for you. Are you interested? So that's our innovative process as far as what we're doing with Access and how we're changing the narrative.
That's great. Sounds like November 12th is the big date for everyone that listens to this. I'm sure they'll be curious to see all the cool things that you guys are doing, and to tune in for that virtual or that career fair as well. And so thank you guys for providing valuable insight. I know I certainly learned a lot about Access 2's journey, and hope to work with you guys as well as keep in touch. And we'll be on the lookout for all of the great things that you guys are doing. So thanks for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.